Thank you.
President-elect Donald John Trump held thank you events for his supporters after he won the presidency in November.
Together, we're going to make Washington answer to the people once again.
The 2016 presidential election year began with primary elections and caucuses for the Democratic and Republican parties. In January, Republicans could choose from 11 candidates for their party's presidential nominee. Public opinion studies, called polls, showed that one candidate stood out from the others: a wealthy businessman and reality TV star from New York.
We are going to start winning again, and we're going to win so much, you are going to be so happy.
For Democrats, 2016's primary election began with 3 candidates. The 2 most popular were former Secretary of State, New York Senator, and First Lady Hillary Clinton, and Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders. Sanders talked forcefully about social and economic equality. He gained popularity with many young voters.
The government of our great country belongs to all of the people and not just a handful of wealthy campaign contributors.
The political conventions for the 2 main parties were in July. The conventions served to officially name each party's presidential candidate.
USA, USA.
Thank you all so much.
Trump's campaign theme was Make America Great Again. He talked about forgotten workers who lost their jobs, and he promised to help them. But it was his unconventional style that appeared to have gained him support. He was not a traditional politician. Trump used social media, especially Twitter, to communicate with the public. Many people considered his language insulting.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people.
Others agreed with his message. Clinton's campaign theme was Stronger Together. She talked about improving conditions for the middle class, expanding women's rights, and improving President Barack Obama's health care law, known as Obamacare. However, during the debates, she and Donald Trump traded insults.
So a man who can be provoked by a tweet should not have his fingers anywhere near the nuclear codes.
We have a divided nation because people like her, and believe me, she has tremendous hate in her heart.
Jim Malone is the national correspondent for Voice of America. He says the campaign was less about issues and more about the identity of the candidates.
The issues that dominated the campaign were the 2 candidates. That's why Hillary Clinton spent most of the time trying to present Trump as unfit to be president, temperamentally and also lacking in knowledge. Trump also went after Clinton with a lot of attacks based on her use of a private email server while Secretary of State, and raised questions about Clinton's trustworthiness. Is she someone the voters could trust?
Trump and Clinton presented themselves as very different candidates. Clinton placed great importance on her experience as a Secretary of State and as a United States Senator. She also spoke about unity
We build bridges, not walls.
Trump placed importance on his experience as a businessman. He said he would clean corruption and waste from the government. Political historian Alan Lichtman says he made a connection with some American voters.
His appeal was to white voters who believe they're being left behind in the global economy and being left behind in an increasingly diverse nation.
Polls taken the day before the election predicted Hillary Clinton would win. But the polls were wrong. In the very early hours of November 9th, results showed that voters chose Donald Trump to be the 45th president of the United States. Some people wonder why the polls were so wrong about voters.
Many of those people wanted change. They were open to voting for Trump, but they were unsure until the last minute that they could support him. Trump, after all, was controversial. He made several controversial statements during the campaign. But at the end of the day, people decided the risk was worth it. They wanted change, and they didn't see Clinton as representing the change that they wanted.
In U.S. presidential elections, the winner of the popular vote in each state receives most or all of the state's electoral votes. A majority of 270 electoral votes is required to elect the president. Trump received 304 electoral votes. Clinton received 227. But Clinton received 2.8 million more votes than Trump. She won the popular vote. But U.S. presidential elections depend on the number of electoral votes in what is known as the Electoral College.
Trump's appeal is to a very narrow slice of Americans. He only got 46% of the popular vote. That's very low for a winning presidential candidate.
Following Trump's win, there were many protests. Some continued for several days. Hillary Clinton called on the nation to accept Donald Trump as president.
Donald Trump is going to be our president. We owe him an open mind and the chance to lead.
President Obama met Donald Trump at the White House 2 days after the election. He spoke of the importance of a peaceful transition of power.
It is important for all of us, regardless of party and regardless of political preferences, to now come together, work together to deal with the many challenges that we face.
I have great respect.
What can we expect from the businessman as President of the United States?
We've never had a businessman with this much of a business empire elected president. How he is able to balance the needs of governing and at the same time assure the American voters that there will be no conflict of interest will be one of the key challenges for Trump early in his administration.
Very hard to know what kind of president Donald Trump is going to be because Donald Trump changes things on a dime. He can contradict himself in a single sentence. We have no idea, for example, what his immigration policy is going to be. He's stocked his cabinet with billionaires. He's essentially turned over defense to the generals. He's made the head of the biggest corporation, Exxon, the Secretary of State. It's nothing like what he promised. There's nobody there who represents his ordinary voters.
On January 20th, Republican Donald Trump will take the oath of office. Congress will be controlled by the Republican Party. On that day, the presidency of Donald J. Trump begins with the hard work of governing the executive branch of the United States. I'm Dorothy Gundy.